Carmarthenshire. Good afternoon, or at least it is good afternoon for me. Good morning for others. My name is Gary Bunt. Welcome to panel 3 on Islamic responses to COVID-19. And welcome to everybody who's joined us. Some of the people have been through the day, others have dropped in and out, but it's great to see everybody anyway. A few housekeeping things, I suppose, before we get started. If we can just have cameras on when people are presenting, then that'll be great. Otherwise, please keep cameras and microphones off at the moment, and that's great. Each presentation will be around about 20 minutes in duration, and then after about 15 minutes I'll start waving a sign of some kind. I've got an orange sign and a red sign to indicate durations, just to give you little useful pointers. Otherwise my camera will be off. And in terms of people wanting to ask questions, we have a chat facility, so you can put your questions into the chat, and we'll try and address as many of those questions as we can by in the end session. So we'll have all of the questions at the end after everybody has completed their specific papers, and there'll be plenty of opportunities for you to ask questions then. And so hopefully we'll have a engaging discussion as we have had with the previous 2 sessions. As I said, this event is being recorded, so ultimately it will appear in some form on virtuallyislamic.com, and I'll send everybody alerts on that. If presenters don't want their presentation to go live, then just drop me an email, and that's absolutely no problem.
No problem.
Oh, got an interesting echo there. Somebody with the microphone on. Okay, so right, we're going to get started now, and our first presentation is from Sana Patel at the University of Ottawa, and her presentation is on online mosques, a response to COVID-19 in Canada. Sana is a PhD candidate at the University of Ottawa, and she's doing some really interesting doctoral fieldwork which focuses on the intersections of offline and online religion amongst young Muslims in North America. And she's got a broad range of research interests, including studying online religious authority, religious diversity and immigration. And Sana is also a member of various projects, including the Canada Muslims Online project and the Religion and Diversity project as well. She's worked on those in the past. So over to you, Sana.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Gary, for organizing this conference. I am truly honored to be a part of this special team. I feel very special to be amongst so many prominent scholars and, present on what I'm doing. So yes, my name is Sana Patel. I'm a PhD student or PhD candidate now at University of Ottawa. Like Gary said, my research interests are on religion online, what young Muslims do online and offline, where online and offline religions meet. All right, so we all know that religion on the internet existed way before COVID happened. There has been a lot of scholarly work on this. I actually research social media, what this has to do with Islam, how Muslims are using social media accounts, religious authority. So this digital era has allowed many religious and non-religious communities to do and perform religion online. Many religious communities and non-religious communities they visit the internet, they've existed on the internet because of its instant access, the speed of attaining information, also accessing material and people that were inaccessible offline. So COVID-19 presented many challenges for religious communities, but it also impacted every individual's life. Um, from being limited, from leaving our own home, to having to wear protective equipment for any kind of human interaction. I don't really need to get into the details of this because we have all experienced this, and we've all experienced it in different ways. So it was common for Muslims in Canada, like other religious communities globally, to visit the mosque on a regular basis. This place was a place of worship, socialization, volunteering, and fundraising, and a place of belonging and a sense of community for many. So although some mosques did have an online presence before COVID through offering live streaming of prayers like Taraweeh in Ramadan or sending newsletters about mosque activities, COVID forced these communities to completely rely on the online world to continue to keep in touch with members. So in this presentation, I'll illustrate how some mosques in the GTA, which is the Greater Toronto Area, responded to challenges posed by COVID-19 by shifting mosque services from offline to online spaces. I would like to say this is a little research project, a paper in progress. I would like to develop it more by adding more qualitative research to it, perhaps a proper theoretical framework. I'm thinking lived religion. I am using lived religion for my doctoral thesis, so probably something along those lines. I would like to actually go and speak to Canadian Muslims and ask them how they feel about mosque services being online, not being able to go to the mosque. Was it difficult at the beginning? How are they dealing with it now that some things are opening up? So I am working on it. So I just had to mention that. All right. Slide 2. So ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America, is a mosque and an educational institution that has been around in Mississauga, Ontario since the early 1980s. It also has a US location in Indiana, and it existed before the 1980s, but not as an official institution. How ISNA came about to be was from different MSAs, different Muslim student associations from around America, from around Canada, and then they officially formed this institution in the 1980s. ISNA is known as one of the largest Muslim communities in North America. Here in Mississauga, they are known for their community iftars that they hosted in Ramadan, many charitable events, and hundreds of Muslims would attend these events, especially for those who had no other place to go. So ISNA offered this kind of safe space for these Muslims. So the iftars that ISNA hosted would be sponsored by local restaurants, and even families would bring home-cooked meals and kind of make it like a potluck style for others. However, with the pandemic, suddenly there were limitations on small and large gatherings, and this included religious settings, just like it was for other religious and non-religious communities. So ISNA's response to this was to start virtual programs and online activities to keep the Muslim community engaged while people figured out how to navigate everyday life amidst the pandemic. So these restrictions started to be imposed in late March, early April 2020, which was very close to Ramadan. So what were people going to do now? They couldn't go to ISNA for the daily prayers. They couldn't participate in the community iftars. The sense of belonging and community that people found in a place like ISNA was gone. So ISNA responded by live streaming each prayer in Ramadan, even though it was only the imam on the camera, just praying. People could watch this on Facebook, on their phones, laptops, or tablets, regardless of wherever they were in the world. So those who could not be involved in anything ISNA related because of their location or any inaccessibility before COVID could now do so thanks to social media. There was some sort of connection to the masjid after all. Although this was one way of involving members without the need for any physical interaction or having them to leave their homes. This also posed some questions. So I'm going to show you an example of one of the imams at Seekers Hub, which I will talk about later, asking or like kind of discussing this question. I'm only about to show 1 minute, but this is a longer video. So if you're interested, you can find it on YouTube.
So many questions are coming about
Sana, we seem to have lost the audio.
Let me try again. Was it from the beginning or?
Yeah, well, we heard a second. I think you have to keep your system audio on, maybe.
I see. Okay, let's try again.
the question that just came through from a dear teacher who's Australian, based in the Gulf. It's a pertinent question, deserving of a proper response, because there's a lot of confusion about it, is that, can I perform Friday prayers, Jumu'ah, at home during the coronavirus, COVID pandemic? And the answer is that it is not valid to perform a private Jumu'ah. Why? Because the basis of Jumu'ah is ijtima', is coming together, So you cannot perform a private Jumu'ah, right? Just consider outside of this crisis, someone's feeling lazy, with their kids, they just decide to hold Jumu'ah at home. You can't do that. Why? Because it has to be based on gathering, right? It has to be based on gathering.
Okay, so the video just continues after that. And I have to say, at the beginning of the video, the zoom into the imam is a great strategy to get the viewers' attention. So they're doing great at that. Okay, so can people pray from their homes? Can people perform rituals from inside the house to feel a part of their communities that they could no longer see in offline spaces? Well, for many Islamic scholars, the answer was negative for performing anything formal, but there was nothing wrong with watching live streams or live khutbahs. Islam launched a daily event for Ramadan where people could watch 4 of Islam's imams give sermons or talks on Islamic matters, much like how they would in person pre-COVID. These imams would discuss ayahs from the Quran, advice on how to deal with anxiety and uncertainty in these weird and sad times, and also talk about stories from the Quran. They call this a timeless companion series. So while this was something virtual, they also organized offline events that local authorities allowed, like drive-through iftars, where people would be allowed to leave their homes, but they would have to stay in their vehicles. They would drive to the mosque to grab their iftar, which would normally have been done in person in a community setting inside the mosque. However, because Ontario had many restrictions that kept changing on and off, those restrictions got these iftars eventually, they canceled. So it was truly a time of uncertainty in Ontario. I believe in Toronto, we were in lockdown at least 3 times that kept changing the stay-at-home order. And by the time it was Eid, both in 2020 and 2021, Islam was able to do the drive-through Eid celebrations. So people could sit in their cars and listen and recite the takbir with the imams on the loudspeaker in the parking lots. Kids decorated their parents' cars and paraded through the parking lot. And most importantly, the best part of Eid, they were able to grab candy bags from the volunteers at the mosque. The photo that you see on the right is of some of Ontario's politicians. So if you don't know, the man who circled in the photo is Ontario's Premier Doug Ford. I just had to put the picture in there because I think it's kind of funny. He was there to support the Muslim community, in these troubling times. He's there to show everyone, he's there for Muslims. He was also present a few weeks ago at the funeral for the victims of the Islamophobic murders of the London, Ontario family. However, he was really quick to block a motion to condemn Islamophobia, which actually eventually got passed in the House of Commons. But I just had to throw that in there, but I guess that's a discussion for another paper, another presentation, but it is kind of funny. Okay, so ISNA's response to the challenges posed by COVID was to almost entirely switch online because of the limitless opportunities and ways of engagement the online world allows. They did have offline attempts for some human interaction, like the drive-through celebrations. When some restrictions were lifted, and few people were allowed to visit mosques again, they had to socially distance and the capacity of people inside was kept. I believe just last week, the capacity was raised to 15%. So people still have to socially distance, only 15% of people can go in and pray for an event or even for like daily prayers or anything. So people who wanted to come to the mosque, they had to register for prayers and events. You couldn't just walk in. And some mosques even created masjid passes where they would enter information, and it was kind of like a self-COVID screening test. So, you would answer, have you been in contact with anyone who has COVID? Do you have any symptoms? Have you traveled outside of the country in the last 2 weeks? And then you would have to show that to whoever's at the mosque, and they'll let you in based on your results. So they still host online events like the virtual premiere of Bilal they had a few months ago, and they are continuing with many online activities for children. So Seekers Hub. Seekers Hub, also known as Seekers Guidance, is both an educational institution and mosque in Toronto. They are part of the online Seekers Guidance Institution, which is an online Islamic seminary. So most of their content and courses are online, but they did have many events at the mosque pre-COVID. So here I just want to kind of share, their most popular online activities. Their YouTube channel has over 36,000 subscribers, and they upload videos daily on different Islamic matters. Seekers Hub is particularly popular among North Americans, especially young North American Muslims. So I found this in my doctoral research, and it was one of the top Islamic institutions that my participants talked about. Oops. Sorry. So as you can see, they also advertised events like the Global Maulid, which was live streamed on YouTube. They also have podcasts where people can listen and access Islamic information and courses that they would in person at Seekers Hub pre-COVID. So these two mosques illustrate the changes in worship and different ways of staying in touch with the Muslim community in the middle of a pandemic and in these times of uncertainty. Online services and events are especially important for religious institutions because it shows how they still hold authority. So religious authority, that is when they cannot interact with others in offline spaces. There are many studies on how individuals and religious communities adapted to shifting online, but COVID forced these mosques to do so. Even for people who would not visit the online world on a regular basis, but they visited the mosque. Okay, got it. Yes, so they visited the mosque online now, including older generations. I know my parents adapted to this by participating in online lectures and watching live streams in Ramadan when they actually preferred to go to the mosque in person pre-COVID. So thanks to COVID, my dad now has social media and he's following all of these Islamic scholars, all of these mosques, especially on WhatsApp. So I get forwarded those WhatsApp mosque online events on a daily basis for my dad. So thanks, Dad, for that. And now in many parts of Canada, we're in the process of reopening. Ontario itself just entered phase 2 of a 3-phase program for reopening, and vaccination rates have been increasing each day. So it'll be interesting to see how things will go as we move forward. If mosques will kind of return to the offline world, whether it'll be like a hybrid, we'll see how things go. So I would really like to develop this paper, this side project more by talking to people and listening to their life story narrative, see, you know, what happened, how they feel about these things. So that is my plan. And that will be all from me. I need to figure out how to stop sharing my screen. Okay.
That's great. Thank you very much, Sana. Very interesting insights into different dimensions. I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions towards the end of the session. So that's great. And yeah, really interesting research and pictures as well.